As labor leaders, we all have a responsibility to remember that the key to the labor movement does not rest with its leaders. It rests with the rank and file of the people who actually do the work.
You're listening to a Rankandfile.ca podcast. Rankandfile.ca is a website dedicated to providing labor news and analysis for rebuilding trade unions and the workers' movement from below. Continuing with our Unifor interview series, we interview Dave Coles. Dave Coles was elected as president of the Communications, Energy, and Paper Workers Union at its 2006 convention. Before that, he served as the CEP's Western Regional Vice President. In the past couple of years, he's played a leading role in the Unifor merger and its founding convention. The formation of Unifor combined two of Canada's most influential unions, each with their own histories and cultures. In that process of coming together, what were the biggest differences that you found between those two cultures?
We were very decentralized and regionalized, and they were very, very centralized. So the power was in one place in the CAW. In the CEP, it was spread out across the regions.
Would the CEP locals be more accustomed to local autonomy, that type of thing?
No, not at all. No, the autonomy issue was identical with both organizations. That wasn't an issue at all. It was more about the governance model.
What was the process behind putting together the unity slate that ran for the National Executive Board?
Well, we had to, and I worked very closely with Ken Loenza on it. We had to be able to meet both, a whole number of criteria, but the first was it had to be a balance between the two organizations. There had to be a regional balance, a industry balance, a gender balance, and it was just a job, a task that I had my side to do, and he had his side, and we just put it together, right?
How did you think about there being, going into the convention, an unopposed slate? Did you expect challenges from the floor? How did you see that playing out?
Well, we had no idea that there would or wouldn't be elections. It's a democratic process. When you're creating an organization like this, we had to put together a unity team or slate or whatever you want to call it so that we could meet our objectives. If you just let it up to Mother Nature, you wouldn't have known where it shook out, right? And that would not have been fair nor right.
In the Unifor Constitution that was put together, there's a firm commitment to the principles of social unionism. How would you describe those principles, and why do you think they're important for the labor movement?
Well, I don't think that the labor movement can be an icon unto itself. It has to engage with all of the partners in society that believe in a progressive, liberal-minded, not liberal, but liberal-minded society. And it won't work without it. It doesn't matter, what you attempt to do if you don't have those kinds of values and connections. It's not going to work. I mean, it's one of the reasons why the labor movement had lost relevance.
How do you see the community chapters, and especially fitting into that social unionism model?
Well, it's key. It's one of the very important cornerstones to the new union, and I think to the new labor movement in general, is that the traditional places are diminishing. Remember, people aren't leaving the labor movement. The industries are leaving Canada. And our new reality is that without an industrial strategy in Canada, it's being gutted and raped of jobs. And so where the jobs are is, in non-industrial workplaces, and that's where we have to go.
What did you make of the whole social media angle that Unifor had?
Well, first off, I'm a strong advocate of social media. All forms of communication, we have to, right from direct mail, telephone town halls, union meetings, plant gates, and social media. It's all got to be a part of what we do. We can't, there is no silver bullet here. We just have to communicate better.
Also at the convention, there were delegates from the floor challenging the chair, including yourself at one point and also President Diaz on the Sunday. What do you make of these challenges and the role it plays for democracy and membership engagement in the union?
Oh, critical. I come from a contrarian place in the CEP. I mean, I came in the labor movement. I came out of the left caucus. I think that that type of debate is healthy for a democracy. I mean, you don't get that anywhere else than in the labor movement.
Do you think that Unifor is off to a good start then with the level of democracy that we saw at the convention?
Yeah, and I think that a convention is a convention. It isn't all where democracy falls. I mean, constitutions are fine, and you got to have one, but the democracy is really about having membership and local union leadership engaged so that their voices are heard. I mean, you always have to have leadership. You got to make recommendations and take positions, but you need grassroots involvement. And I think the convention was well done and fine, but that's not where all of the democracy is. I mean, we have Canada councils, we have regional councils, we have sectoral or industrial councils. I mean, that is grassroots democracy where you actually get your hands dirty.
Can you explain for our listeners what those different types of councils are and what role you hope they're going to play in Unifor?
Well, let's start first with the Canadian Council. That's once a year. All of the locals get together where the officers and staff report out to the membership and are held accountable for their actions. So there's the big show. Then in the interim time periods, each region of the country has its own council where you get to deal with geographic issues. So we'll say British Columbia, for example, has its own geographic council with an elected executive and all of the functions that are needed to make it operate. And that's where you deal with the regional issues. On the industry councils, and this is a critical piece, when you have a big amalgam like we have, it would be easy to neglect the needs of collective bargaining and issues that are industry specific. And so we have 20 now, it'll end up more, industry councils where those who work in a particular industry get together and talk about their needs and desires and make plans.
On the question of taking on the Harper government and his kind of pro-employer, pro-free trade agenda, the question of how the labor movement's going to engage the election is always an issue, and the CAW and CP have had different positions on strategic voting and supporting the NDP. What do you think about that whole question, and how do you see all those issues playing out?
Well, I think it's a bit of a red herring. The CAW actually has a bigger participation in the NDP than the CP did. It was, positions strategic leadership took, and I think that that's healthy. We're going to have that debate most likely at our Canada Council, but we are committed to engaging politically at all levels. You got to remember the CEP didn't just endorse the NDP. We also endorsed the Bloc and the Parti Québécois. So it's a very diverse country, and we're going to take this on piece by piece. But everyone is committed to become more politically active, and we're going to do that.
For people in English Canada like myself who are trade unionists and looking at Unifor and are excited about what's happening, what sort of principles can a renewed labor movement, what sort of relationship should we be looking at with our Quebec brothers and sisters?
We have both organizations had tremendous respect for Quebec. Our constitutions were designed that gave a significant amount of autonomy to Quebec. It carries on. We have a specific senior position in the leadership team for Quebec, specified by Quebec. There are individual differences in the membership and the leadership on the issue of sovereignty for Quebec, but it's about their right to determine. So I think the relationship between Unifor and Quebec, if it's possible, will be even stronger.
Now we're starting to see, like last week, the Fraser Institute came out with a kind of bogus study talking about right to work in Ontario. What do you know about maybe what the federal government's coming up with on right to work, and how would you speak to workers about the issue of right to work?
Well, it's not right to work anyway. That's a framing question that the business community have been able to get away with. It's really anti-union legislation. And it will be a line in the sand for not only the new union Unifor, but for the labor movement. They want to have dust up with workers in this country. Bring it on. We were born out of struggle, and that's where we're going. If they want to fight, they got it. They're not going to have an easy ride. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy on labor either, but if you don't fight, you can't win. If you give up, you lose for sure. So, bring it on. Quite frankly, it is a bad business model. Decent CEOs that know how capitalism works aren't looking for this fight. They've been advised, the Harperites have been advised not to do it, but they don't give a tinker's damn. It's just like the issue around Canadian corporations. They would prefer that there is no Canadian corporations, that they're all multinational. That's clear by their actions, and this is not rhetoric, it's fact. So if they're looking for a fight, they'll get one.
Can you speak to the issue of Bill C-377 and it being bounced around between the Senate and the House of Commons?
Well, it's phony. It is not about transparency at all. What it is about is trying to encumber trade unions and their activities. We're not having any part of it. Nor will a labor movement in general. It's a violation of the Constitution. It's illegal. They know it. I'm not sure whether that's why they prorogued the House to get another crack at it, but that fight is long but over.
And there's also Bill C-525 at the federal level, which changes certification and decertification rules.
Well, I mean, if those rules apply to the Conservatives, there wouldn't be a sitting member. Single sitting member. They would all have been defeated if you had to have 50% of those who were eligible to vote. It's totally bogus. It can't stand the test of any rational or legal thought. So, I mean, these are just paranoid, schizophrenic, right-wing lunatics at work here. I mean, it's not about anything other than trying to crush the labor movement.
So you're no longer president of CEP, and CEP is no longer itself. What are you going to do now?
Well, personally, right now I'm working for the president, Jerry Dias, as long as he wants me around to ensure that the integration takes place into the new union as smoothly as possible. He has me working on some other projects. I'm doing outreach to other unions. There's a number of issues that I have to work on. And then when I finish that, I'll have to decide what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Any last thoughts or last words?
Well, I think that your listeners need to understand that this is not a pro-business government. This is an anti-Canada government. This is someone and his followers that don't like the country and don't like the people that live in it. And that's not some irrational statement. It is. I say it by what I've experienced, whether it's around forestry, the energy sector, what he's done in telco, the free trade agreements. He is just anti-government and anti-Canadian. I mean, I think he would feel quite comfortable if there was an American flag flying. And he's been that way for a long time, and now his true colors are coming out.
Thanks very much for taking the interview. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
You've been listening to a Rankandfile.ca podcast. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.